Okay, it is the Sophie Martin Show on New HD, here with one of our very good, longtime friends, Roger Earl of Foghat. So, what was life like growing up in England, and when did you come to the United States?
The first time I came to the States was in 1968 with Savoy Brown. And it actually felt like coming home. America is the land of music, rock and roll, blues, jazz, country and western, bebop, R&B, Motown. I've said country and western, haven't I? Actually, I'm going to say that twice because I'm a Johnny Cash fan. But 1968 with Savoy Brown, and then we came here for a couple of years. We left Savoy Brown at the end of 1970, and then in 71, 72 actually, we kept Foghat's first tour, and I moved here in 1973, and I got my green card in 1976. So I'm an American, just that you folks talk a little funny. I grew up in southwest London. It's about 10 miles from London Airport. There wasn't much of an airport when I was growing up. There was a lot of bombed out buildings when I was growing up, from World War II. So that was, my playroom. We go in there and find unexploded bombs and mines and stuff. Not really, but it was great. I had a really cool childhood. My parents, my father worked at Aston Martin's, which was about 3 miles down the road. They used to have their original workshop down there in Feltham. And so I would come home from lunch when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. And my father would have these Aston Martins parked outside because he was a panel fitter. He would fit the doors and the dashboards and stuff. Then he would have to take them out on the road to road test them, which I think was probably the reason he wanted the job. So, and my father played piano, and one time, I think it was Jerry Lee Lewis's either Whole Lot of Shaking Going On or Great Balls of Fire. I can't remember which one it was, but I do remember the B-side, which was Mean Woman Blues. And my father played piano. He came from the East End of London. And so he said, "Yeah, have a listen to this one, son. This boy can really play the Joanna." Joanna is a term for a piano, because in the East End of London, we like to change words so that people can understand what we're talking about if they don't come from there. And my father took me to see Jerry Lee Lewis when I was 12 years old. And my mother used to like to say that I was never the same after that. It addled my brain. Growing up in London was good. I had great parents. My parents were really cool. We weren't rich or anything. We struggled. We lived in a semi-detached house. But there was always food on the table. We had chickens in the backyard, and mum and dad grew vegetables. We had a pear tree, 2 apple trees, a plum tree, and we had a nut tree as well. I think almond tree. We had an almond tree, but there weren't too many almonds, so I wasn't a big nut fan then. I had a really cool childhood. Across the road from me was a park, and I'd fished. I've been fishing since I was 6 years old. I still fish anywhere where there's water. I put most of the big ones back now. Thing that happens as you get older, you sort of value life quite a bit more. Music scene. I was about 13 years old, and it was just after Dad had taken us to see Jerry Lee Lewis, and I said, "Dad, I want to get a motorbike because I worked after school. I worked 3 days a week after school, and I worked Saturday mornings in a bakery. So I had my own money. Mum and Dad went, you're not going to give you money if you don't do anything. Those were the good old days." And I said, "Dad, I want to get a motorbike because I had pictures of when Dad was young, and he had a motorbike and a sidecar that he used to drive Mum around in. And he said, well, I'm not going to help you with that, son, because they have to sign on the dotted line. I was paying for it, but you had to have a parent to sign for it. So I said, all right, I want a drum kit. And he said, well, I happen to know somebody who's a drum teacher. So he introduced me to my drum teacher. It was the same drum teacher that the drummer in the Kinks had. He lived in, where did he live? Somewhere in southwest London, not far from me. And so I took drum lessons. I would save up my money for a drum kit. And when I was about 14 or 15, I think it was my 15th birthday, my drum teacher said, well, yeah, you can get a drum kit if you want. Apparently, I'd been a reasonable student. But like most teenagers, I sort of, I thought I knew everything. I've got better. So I got a drum kit and I started playing. I joined my first band when I was around my 17th birthday with some school friends I went to school with. Dave Hutchins, who was a bass player. We were best friends at school. And Ray Dorset, who was the lead singer in a band called Mungo Jerry. They had a big hit called In the Summertime. You may remember that. In the summertime, yeah. And then when I was 15, 16 years old, I left home and I earned a living as a commercial artist. And I moved up to central London and I shared a flat with my best friend, Dave Hutchins. And then I joined Savoy Brown when I was 20, I believe. What else? What else you want to know?
What inspired you to become a musician, and how did you come up with the name Foghat for your band?
Inspired me to be a musician. Well, like I said, my father turned us on to like rock and roll, Jerry Lee Lewis. My older brother, who's 4 years older than me, bought Elvis Presley records, the early ones from Sun Records down in Memphis. Early Elvis records are fantastic. And that's when I became a Johnny Cash fan, because my older brother was a Johnny Cash fan. He was 4 years older than me. I was the only kid when I was 12 or 13 years old riding my bike to school singing Johnny Cash songs. I don't think anybody else in southwest London knew who Johnny Cash was. There might have been, but I didn't meet them. So I used to sing Johnny. My voice wasn't quite as deep then. It was a, but she loves you, Big River, more than me. Ooh, that's enough of that. It was Johnny Cash, and then I got interested in American blues music, Muddy Waters. Actually, my favorite record was Muddy Waters at the Newport Jazz Festival, a live album, probably one of the greatest live albums ever made. You should check it out sometime. The drummer on that was Francis Clay. Not that I could play like him, but the music itself just moved me. The American blues was my inspiration for playing music. Muddy Waters, who I met and played with, John Lee Hooker, Howlin' Wolf, later on Buddy Guy, of course, who I actually met and toured with. Shared some cognac with Buddy Guy too. Great musician, great man, great singer. That was my start anyway. We finished Foghat's first album. We didn't have a name for the band. We had some temporary names. We hadn't played anywhere really. And we finished the first album, and myself, Lonesome Dave and Rob Price were driving up to London in my car to look at the artwork for the first album. But we didn't have a name for the band. So as we're going up the stairs, we said, well, what are we going to call ourselves? And Foghat had actually come up before that, but they said, what about Foghat? It was a name that he made up when he was playing like a Scrabble game with his brother, John, who, by the way, was a roadie for the Faces. There's a little bit more useless information for you. And so that's how it came about. It was just like a name, and it just means us, doesn't really mean anything, though some people think it means something. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Are there any instruments that you've always wanted to play?
Piano. If we could move this inside, I can play in a rather limited version of a slow blues in the key of C. Now, most bands play, guitar bands anyway, play in A and E and some other strange keys. But I could probably jam with ZZ Top because they often jam in the key of C, which is a little known fact. I read it somewhere, so it must be true. So I could probably jam with ZZ Top if they had a piano. That's enough of that. Piano probably, but as my older brother became a piano player, my father played piano rather well, and the drums took up all my time, which they still do actually.
Who were your influences growing up?
Oh well, you mean like playing drums? Like I said earlier, that Muddy Waters live at Newport with Francis Clay. The drummer who used to play on all the Chess records, what was his name? I've forgotten now. And really just it was all about music really. And my style of drumming, I think, it was always like to play for the song and play for the music, as to, you know, it's never going to be like, you know, the sort of great jazz drummers like Buddy Rich and Louis Belson. They were like, you know, they were in a much different level. But it was you know, I always played for the music. I always wanted to play in a blues band, rock and roll band, and I did ever since, you know, the first band I was in. We played blues, rock and roll, R&B, and when I joined Savoy Brown, that was a blues band. And certainly Foghat's influences was always from blues music. It was yeah, it was. I was always fortunate as well. I always played with great players. I think great bass players. Anyway, in my first band, Dave Hutchins, who was the bass player, my best friend, was a great bass player. Still plays, and we're still friends. When I joined Savoy Brown, Tony Stevens, when he joined, great bass player. And I always played with, you know, I think really good guitar players. You know, and I think when you play with great players, it helps sort of raise your game and how you can play. Also, the drummer with Chess Records, Freddie Below, played on most of Chess Records. Willie Dixon was there, who was a bass player, who did all their arrangements and all the songs and stuff. I met him in Chicago a couple of times and went to his house on the south side of Chicago and had dinner with him and his family. There would be no rock and roll if it wasn't for people like Willie Dixon and Muddy Waters. Oh, and let's not forget Chuck Berry. We would all be out of a job, especially the Rolling Stones, if there wasn't a Chuck Berry. Oh, the world would have been horrible without Chuck Berry. Thank goodness for Chuck. Yeah, it was, like I said, mostly it was usually about the music. But Freddie Below was incredible. Bernard Purdie was another great drummer who influenced me, who was also 2 or 3 steps above my capabilities. But I did, in fact, do a session with Bernard Purdie. It was around the time that we were doing the Energized album, and our producer, Tom Dawes, used to do a lot of session work, like jingles and stuff like that. And Dave and I were like talking to him Dave and I were talking to our producer about one night, and Bernard Purdie's name came up. And Tom said, "I know Bernard, he does all my session work." And Dave and I looked at each other and said, "You think you can get him to come and play with us for a song or two?" And he said, Tom said, "No problem, as long as you pay him." So I also got to play with one of my heroes, by Bernard Purdie. We did 2 or 3 songs together. And I also remember learning something from playing with Bernard. I mean, he was an incredible player. He played with Aretha Franklin, James Brown, all that really cool, funky stuff. Got to have some of that funky stuff. And we sat down. I already knew the arrangements, and he reads charts, chart music. So Tom had written out the arrangements for him on a chart, and We were set up side by side, the drum kits, and the rest of the band was set in front of us in a semicircle, which is a really cool way to sort of play because you can hear and see each other. And Bernard said to me, he said, we'll run through it the first time to get the arrangement right. We'll play it the second time to get the song right. And we'll play it a third time for fun. And the truth is, if you have to play a song more than 3 times, you don't know the song and you don't know what you're doing. So come back to it later. So thank you, Bernard. His full name is Bernard Pretty Purdy because he plays so pretty.
Do you have a specific genre of music that you like to listen to?
I like to listen to. Actually, in recent years, I kind of spread my wings a bit. I like listening to all kinds of music. When I'm driving somewhere, I'll put on like the classical station or the country station, not necessarily a rock and roll station, but I love Motown music. I mean, that's like the best when you're driving somewhere because then you can sing along with it. But and jazz as well. The other day, we're down in Florida at the moment at our studio. We're just doing some cleaning up and yard work here. We've got 10 acres to deal with. We've got lots of room so we can make as much noise as we want when we're recording and rehearsing. But I had a jazz station on and Linda was with me and said, "You got jazz on?" And I said, "Yeah, it's all right. You can listen to jazz." So yeah, I like to listen to all sorts of music. Whereas in my youth, I was a lot more focused, or probably had blinders on. It's like this is what I want. This is all I want. But now I've opened up.
Are you looking forward to going on concert tours when it's safe to do so?
Yeah, we just did our first show on Saturday. It was a private show at a casino out in Michigan. Normally it holds about 3,000 people. In fact, we played there before as Foghat. And I think the first time we played there, we opened up for Dwight Yoakam. Have you ever heard of Dwight Yoakam?
No.
Guitars and Cadillacs, hillbilly music, only thing that keeps me hanging on. All right, I won't sing anymore, okay? That's why I'm the drummer in the band. Like I said, normally it holds about 3,000 people, but they limited it to 650 people. And only 2 people could sit together at a time. They were like 6 to 10 feet apart. Everybody had to wear masks. And so that's why we played there. And actually they were fantastic, weren't they? The people that ran the place, and everything was like, all the food was sealed. Great PA, great equipment they set up for us. So it was nice. And yes, I'm really, because that was the first date we had in 13 months. So I don't remember a time that actually I felt bad when we were off, when the COVID thing was all over the place. I would do like some Facebook live things and like talk to people about, and thank the first responders, and especially the nurses and the doctors, the truck drivers, the folks who were keeping the supermarkets open and keeping us alive and supplying us with toilet paper. I remember that little rumor. Anyway, it was. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing again. We have the next date is sometime in might be the 15th of May, but we don't really have anything. We have 3 dates in July, in June, 2 in July, and then August, September, October. We have quite a lot of work. So yeah, by then this COVID thing should be pretty much under control, hopefully. But I'll tell you one thing, Sophie. I don't think I've had a summer off or a year off since I was 12 years old, and even then it was just the summer. And it was really nice because, I could go in the garden, planted my garden, vegetables and stuff, mowed the lawn, washed the car, went fishing, caught lots of fish, put most of the big ones back except one. and that was full size. So we had that for dinner. It actually supplied us for about 4 dinners. And it was actually, I didn't really feel bad, but I had a really good time. You know, I was at home at my house with Linda, my beautiful bride, and it was terrific. I had a really good time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. No, we didn't have anybody get really ill that was close to us, but I mean, I kept up on what was going on with the COVID nightmare. It was just absolutely horrendous. I think our current, well, I know our current government is actually doing a pretty good job, and I thought it was pretty amazing that they got vaccines done within a year. I know some people are a bit nervous about that, but I've had my double shots, as has Linda. The band has had their shots, haven't they? Yeah, because except for Rodney, that's because Rodney's young. He's 50. He's not as old as us. But actually, Rodney's very useful. He can carry stuff and move things around, and also when we're driving somewhere, we let Rodney drive because we're taking a nap.
Who are some of your favorite people to meet and work with?
Playing wise, well, actually, when we first came to the States, we did a lot of dates with the Jay Giles band. What a fantastic band they were! Super people to work with, and Humble Pie, Stevie Marriott, who was an absolute gem. They were a fantastic band too. Recently, I would say George Thorogood, I really enjoy playing with. I'm good friends with their drummer, and George is a really cool guy. Great band. I usually get up and play tambourine on some songs. Who else? Eddie Money, unfortunately, he passed away. Was it last year? Yeah. Paul Rogers from Bad Company is one of my favorite bands. Actually, Bad Company is always one of my favorite bands. What a great band they are. Their songs, the way they play, and super people. Let's see, who else? ZZ Top. We've done some shows with them. They were always one of my favorite bands. We did a number of shows with them back in the early days, in 73, 74, somewhere around there. We used to work with a company out of New Orleans called Beaver Productions, Don Fox, and we did a number of shows with ZZ Top then. Yeah, one of my favorite bands. I love their music. Their songs are just the best. I could play piano in that band if they jam a blues in the key of C.
What's up next for your career, and how did the pandemic affect everything?
It's kind of answered that. Well, it stopped us from working. Like I said, we just did our first show. Affected my career. Actually, it was in some ways it was useful because I was starting to having some issues with my hands. But I've had them fixed. I've got a doctor who really knows what he's doing, stem cell therapy, and what's the other stuff called? PRP. And it worked incredibly well for my hands and my big toe on my right foot because I'm a drummer. We don't sort of like tap. We play. So everything's going well. It's going really well.
What's your favorite song to perform on stage?
I don't know that I have a favorite. With Foghat, unlike some, also with supported most bands that are in, we generally had a pretty free night. It was just the band who wrote and recorded the songs. We didn't have producers telling us what to do. Their job was just to make us sound great and basically join the band. The producer joins the band. Any great producer would join the band when you're recording. They're like a fifth member, as it was. The songs that we wanted to record. Occasionally, our management and record company would suggest somebody else's song to do. I remember them suggesting we do a Bad Company song. And Dave and I said, why would we want to do a Bad Company song? They've already done it great. We're not going to be able to improve on that. So that didn't work out. So I was always happy with the music that we made, and I always enjoyed it. And you know, the band was always involved in the rehearsals and the construction of the song. So, you know, if I sort of help make the song, maybe I'll have to play it forever. Which, you know, it was 13 albums we did with the original band. We've done how many since? Five albums since, you know, we lost Lonesome Dave and Rob Price and Craig McGregor. Well, no, Craig McGregor was on a couple of them. But so we have, you know, a couple of hundred songs to pick from that we've recorded. So it's, and most of them tend to be between 6 and 7 minutes. We like to jam. So I don't really have a favorite song, but I do enjoy playing what we play. I mean, Stone Blue is a great song to play. I Just Want to Make Love to You, Slow Ride, of course. Charlie Hume, our lead singer and guitar player, is a great singer, and we do a slow blues. What is the slow blues we do? Hurts Me Too. Hurts Me Too, and I love playing that because it gives me a break, but also Charlie's got a great voice and he kind of owns that song now because, you know, singing a slow blues, you have to emote, and Charlie does that rather well. In fact, I'm really, really fortunate, like I said earlier, with the musicians that I played with over the years. I mean, Brian Bassett, our lead and slide guitar player. In fact, he's coming over for dinner tonight, so we're good friends. He's an incredible guitar player and producer and engineer. I think, Sophie, if you surround yourself with really good people, it makes you look good. Know what I mean? That's about it.
So tell us more about 8 Days on the Road, which is available on CD, DVD, and vinyl. That was recorded live at Daryl's House Club. That must have been exciting.
Not yet.
Yeah, that's coming out, I think, in July 16th. That's going to be released. Our manager, Linda, has been finishing the artwork, and it's going to come out a DVD on July 16th and CD. Will the vinyl be ready by then? Hopefully the vinyl will be ready. We've got pressings a couple of weeks ago, and we listened to them, so that should be coming out as well. I think we're going to produce like 1,000 or 2,000 in vinyl, and yeah, that was it was towards the end of 19, wasn't it? Yeah, towards the end of 19 before, and as you noted, we played at Daryl's House Club. We'd been on the road for like about 4 days, and we were driving everywhere. We had a Sprinter, so everybody was a bit tired, but we knew the arrangements. But the place had this incredible recording system. They had and the engineer was terrific. Normally we don't get a chance to play in small clubs. It was a 200-seat theater. We were supposed to play, 200-seat club. We were supposed to play in a theater about 100 miles north, but they had some issues with the theater and noise and stuff, and it was owned by the same people that run the club. So we moved the date to the club, and it was a lot of fun because, you know, normally you don't get a chance to play to people that are like within sweating distance. That's horrible. In fact, when we took the stage, there were people right up against the stage that were having dinner, and I said, do you really want to sit there? Because you better finish your food fast, because this is a rock and roll band and we sweat. Because if you don't sweat, it ain't rock and roll. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, we were a bit tired, but we also played a bunch of songs that we don't normally play that night, and I think we played for nearly 2 hours. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was really pleased with it.